What do you think would surprise movie fans about the process of movie making that they might not know?
It's kind of hard to fathom sometimes how many things have to go right in order for a movie to work at every single level, at every single turn, from the writing process to the visual development to when you're actually shooting to editorial. There's so many different people who have to be doing their best work all the time in order for something to actually come together and work. And it's not a matter of experience, because there's people who are hugely experienced who've made movies that didn't work, and people who've had no experience at all who've made outstanding movies. And so there's just this alchemy that no one really knows how to create it. But if everybody's working together in the right way, that magic can happen.
You all have to go in and essentially pitch the studio on a vision, or ultimately there's someone who you need to say, says yes to what you want to do. What is it like to go in and pitch on these big movies, or pitch the Hollywood studio system?
I feel like that's probably changed a lot since your career started, Robert, because I feel like now there's this other element of, this is why we have to go to the movie theater to see the movie.
Right.
And that you didn't used to have to make that case quite as much. And so now that's a part of it. And yet in the end, I feel like you have to make an emotional case for your film. You have to really be able to lay out, what people are going to feel while they're watching this movie, and when they come out of this movie, and why it's going to be worth going to the theater to have that emotional experience. But if you're not dialed into that, if I think there's probably just an assumption that we go in and show a bunch of pictures and some kind of reel, and that's enough, and tell them what the set pieces are going to be. But I found, and maybe some places that's true, but I've been fortunate enough that in the films that I've made, people really want to know why we're making this movie. It was the first conversation I ever had with my boss now. Why is Jurassic Park 4?
Do you typically get super nervous before a meeting like that? Like the night before, are you spinning in your head the way you're spinning when you're on a movie set? Because this is ultimately the people that will say yes or no to your vision.
The confidence with which you tell your story in that room will create confidence in itself, that you both understand it, and that you're going to be able to communicate it to others, because that's so much of what the job is. I have so many conversations with people who are not, traditionally known as creative, in creative positions, that are purely technical positions, but we talk story all the time, because the more people know about the story, not just, the better the movie will be, but also the more true the movie is going to be to what you're trying to accomplish. So I try to communicate it not just to the studio, but to everybody.
What is it like sitting down with the person you want to cast for that initial meeting, hoping that this thing is going to work out?
Early on, when no one has any idea who you are or what you're like. And that's what you're like is the most important part, because people do talk to each other. Like if you're good on set and you care about other people and you support actors and you listen to actors talk to each other. And over time, that kind of a reputation builds up. But when you're just starting out, you're just this kid. And so in the end, they're kind of just like looking deep into your soul and just quietly deciding whether you're the kind of person that they're going to trust. And that works for people you're trying to convince on every level. So my experience, whether it was a little bit more recently, with the actors in Dominion, with it's these legends. It's Laura Dern and Sam Neill and Jeff Goldblum, who the last time they played these roles, they were directed by Steven Spielberg. And then here am I, and they know that I exist, but they want to know my heart. And so I think making sure that they're going to trust you the way that they trusted somebody like that, it's a little nerve-wracking.
When you're making a project in these worlds with these diehard fans, can you sort of talk about towing the line between pleasing the fans but also making your own vision for what you want to do?
Could do a whole other hour on that one. I think there's something really interesting that we have discovered generationally, for people who are, roughly our age, and that a lot of these films that were made, in the 70s and the 80s, in a lot of ways have become they're almost a belief system for some of us. Like there are myths in a way that is so powerful, and it goes beyond, just being a film. And so when you start to delve into telling further stories, another chapter in the Bible, another testament, that it gets very complicated because we hold our beliefs very, very close, and we hold them in a very, very personal way. And I think the only way to even begin to approach it is to respect that, to respect that it is possible for something created 30, 40 years ago to be as personal for someone as a belief system or a religion is for other people. And I respect that. I'm kind of one of those people in a lot of ways. And if you can approach it that way, then you just have to trust yourself that your instincts are just as strong as anyone else who grew up on that thing, and follow them, I guess. But it is a dangerous game. Actually, just hours ago before we taped this, it was announced that we're going to be going back into production in a couple weeks on Jurassic World Dominion. So we had to stop, just like the rest of the world, and now there's just a real sense of family and camaraderie amongst everyone who knows that we're going to really need to support each other to do what we're about to do. If you can imagine the challenge of making a movie like this in the first place, and I'm sure if you saw the last movie, this is not just some people on an island anymore. It's a really large scale global epic story. With characters from the original Jurassic Park, all in major roles, and of course, Bryce and Chris, and so all of these people have come together in a really inspiring way. And we have Zooms together, and we have chat threads together as we try to get each other inspired and kind of riled up for what we need to attempt to do. And the biggest challenge for me is that we have tons of protocols and many layers of safety and protection for everybody, because that's obviously the top priority. But once all of that has been applied, it's still going to be a couple people in the center of a circle trying to make something feel real and honest. And so to find that in the context of all this, we may be the first ones out doing that. And so we'll certainly report back, but we definitely have the right team.
I think a lot of filmmakers wish they had a break in the middle of a shoot to allow them to look at what they had and to think about what they want to do in the future. You were shooting for almost a month. How has this hiatus maybe impacted your script or your action set pieces? Has it allowed you to look at what you had and what you wanted to do in a different way?
Man, I wish we all had that. I'm sure everyone agrees, the ability to just stop and think for a second about what you were doing, cut it together, make sure that, especially if you're trying something really new, that what you believed would work is working. And we got to do that, and we didn't really change the script much, but we definitely were able to cut and go into put several sequences through the visual effects pipeline, and really, in a lot of ways, establish relationships between each other. Some people have worked together a lot before. Like with any movie, you're forging creative relationships over the process of it. And so to be able to have this time for all of us to know how we work together, to know each other, and then to head back in to what will be a challenge. At least we're doing it with people we know really, really well.
You guys obviously are at the forefront of the industry in terms of hearing about what's going on and what CGI can do. What has happened in the last year or two that has really excited you with technology? And what do you think is about to happen in the future that might be able to impact what we get out of movies or what we can do in movies, if anything?
In my world, I mean, there are things that I've observed that it's cool to watch people do them, but I'm not necessarily looking to do it myself. We've actually gone more practical with every Jurassic movie we've made since the first one, and we have more animatronics in this one than we have in the previous two. And the thing that I found, just especially in working in the past couple of months, is that we finally reached a point where it's possible to the digital extensions on animatronics will be able to match the texture and the level of fidelity that on film an animatronic is going to be able to bring in. You didn't used to be able to really mix them. Like you could really see the seams. And so that part of it is very exciting for me. And also just in the context of our stuff, J.A. Bayona really, he found the value in creating really photoreal, just beautiful lighting references that could be articulated just slightly, just a head and a jaw that could move, and the ability to, but painted beautifully, hand painted. And we do it for all of the dinosaurs now. So we put it into a space, you can see how the light, reacts to the skin, and even if they ultimately do make that, a digital animal, there was always something there, reacting to the light in that environment. That has proven to be just puppetry in general, really simple puppetry has proven to be amazing. It's got to be one of the biggest leaps forward is just the real time, cinema quality render right now that we've had in a bit. I don't know how it's going to translate to the big screen. We haven't seen that yet. I think Mandalorian, looks fantastic, and yet I think what I got to work on at ILM, which I thought was amazing as well, was having a not a cinema quality render, but a render in VR that allowed us to use VR to travel around a world that we built in order to essentially make a previs. And we use it on Battle at Big Rock on the short that I did. I shot that whole thing handheld in VR. Which allowed me to really be in the space, with actors and have a sense of, the immediacy that just being able to capture it myself. I was just holding the camera, and that was extremely exciting as a filmmaker to be able to be in a fantasy space, but holding the camera yourself. I know it's this is what Cameron's doing. I know that you guys have done it as well, but as that continues to advance, I can't imagine what the next generation is going to pull off.
What's a detail or a decision that each of you had to fight for in one of your films that you're most proud of?
I can think of, one is changing the name of the franchise took some convincing. It was called Jurassic Park, and if you can imagine at the time, they were pretty married to that. So me going in and writing a very carefully worded email to Steven asking if I could, change the name of his franchise. It wasn't a fight, but it took a weekend to figure that one out. And the other one I would say is probably in my first movie is that we changed the ending of that movie so that the time machine worked and Safety Not Guaranteed after we were done with the film and we'd been accepted into Sundance, and we got what we were after. We'd been recognized for having made something that worked, and I just had this instinct. I remember walking the streets of New York City, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like mine, and there was just something wrong. And I went in and asked everyone, will you go with me if I fundamentally change the end of this movie and the time machine does work, which had never been discussed up to that point. And this was like 2 weeks before Sundance. And I did it. And it could be argued that it might have changed the trajectory of my career, that singular choice. And I think there are a lot of moments that we look back on as directors, and they may have just been an instinct at the time. And then you realize that was the thing that made this all, come together and work in the first place. And it's kind of a scary idea that can all come down to one call, but it's true.
Do each of you have a project that ultimately didn't move forward for whatever reason, even though it was close to production? And what happened, if you can share?
I'm actually surprised at how long it took me to think of it. And I was like, oh yeah, I was going to direct a Star Wars movie. But it took me literally a minute. Because I couldn't. I'm being serious.
Were you really close to you weren't close to shooting or anything? You weren't.
No, I mean, we were art and writing. It was a development thing. It was a script development thing, and I guess the lesson from it is I'd always I've been very fortunate, in that the films that I've directed, I've always really. The path that I wanted to follow and the path that everyone involved wanted to follow was the same. And it's totally possible for, people to see two totally different paths through the woods. So that was just an experience that obviously you can imagine, as all of these things, like it can get to the point of being, traumatic when there's something that you care about that much and you've invested that much in it. But that's one of the things that you accept when you take on any role in film, and especially when you become a storyteller, that there are going to be heartbreaks. There's going to be crushing disappointments, and then there's going to be victories, and hopefully they'll balance out in the end. I didn't get to have a table read with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. That's pretty awesome. I actually, hold on a second. I got something cool. Hold on. Look at this.
Toy box. Bring the toy over. Yeah, there you go.
That's my version of Tom Cruise. And so this is my son and I designed a ship because we were designing ships. And one of the two, I have two ships. One of them is at the theme park at Disneyland. This is the other one. And it only exists in this 3D model. And for Christmas, it's called the Tie Marauder. And it does this. And for Christmas, the guys painted it for me. So I only had this in a 3D model. And now this is the only one in the world. Wow. And it's an amazing memory for me of something that, when I got to do something that was an incredible experience, and just from start to finish, that I was able to make a Star Wars ship with my son.
How old is your son when he made that?
He's 11 now. And this is him, I guess, at 9. But
yeah. Well, man, keep working with it. I can't tell you
that experience.
I can't tell you how fun it is to work with your kids on movies.
Yeah, and I mean, where are you going to get the perspective too of a child? At a certain point, you can try to hold on to that as long as you can, but especially even when it comes to what we were talking about earlier, about making new versions of the stories that we love. There are two audiences. There are your peers. There's us, because we grew up on these movies. But we also we have to recognize that this is their time now, that they get these movies now, and that you have to make it possible that they feel the same sense of ownership over these stories that we're telling, that we felt. And the reason why we all get so riled up about it is because we care so deeply. And down the line, they're going to probably feel the same way, hopefully, about what we're all doing now. I hope.
I think fans understand that the trailer is designed for the casual moviegoer who goes to the movies once or twice a year, and you're trying to sell to them as to why this movie should be the one you pick. But then there's tons of people that watch trailers or go to the movies all the time and see a trailer, and these trailers sometimes give away these huge beats of a movie and things that you want to keep under wraps. Can you sort of talk about working with the marketing department, crafting trailers, and fighting for secrecy versus knowing you have to show some of it to get people in those seats?
You were asking about, battles fought and lost. I would say the battles most often lost come in on the marketing side of things. That's the one place where, there are real needs that exist in order to get this thing the audience that will justify its cost, frankly. And, from any filmmaker, I think the biggest frustration is that, if you have something that's one of those moments that's just a crazy moment where you can't believe what the hell you're watching, and people are going to have that experience outside of the context of your movie. They'll have had it, on the internet. They'll have watched it on their phone, and they will have already gone through that. So by the time they actually see it, instead of like, oh my God, this is insane, this is cool, what they're thinking is, well, there's that part.
What's been the biggest pinch me moment of your career?
Mine was we were recording the score for the first Jurassic World, and Michael Giacchino has a relationship with Paul McCartney. And he came up to me and he was like, look, if it's cool with you, Paul wants to come by tomorrow with his family, with his kids, and just listen to the orchestra for a while. He loves orchestra stuff. It was like amazing. So I called my dad, and my dad was a musician. He had a country rock band in the 80s, and I used to go see him play. Like, he'd open for like Willie Nelson in like stadiums. So he was my music hero when I was a kid. And I called him up and I was like, Dad, I'm going to bring you down here. I'm flying you down here. I'm not going to tell you why. Just be here tomorrow. So he came down and he shows up, and I told him 10 minutes, Paul McCartney's going to be in here. So stay cool. And so Paul walks in and he brings his whole family, and they listen to it. And we have this moment when we're all touring just these different instruments. We're going around and Paul's, seeing all these. Michael has a lot of different kinds of instruments besides, what you traditionally use. And I went and introduced him to my dad. And I was like, oh, this is my father, Robert. And Paul McCartney looks my dad in the eye and goes, "Oh, you must be real proud of you, boy." Then, and I was like, "We're done. we're done here, Dad."
Oh, that's cool.
It was pretty cool.
Please like, subscribe, and comment on the video. May the Force be with you.